What's up, War Room? Welcome back. New episode, draft week. Will Parkinson back and alive from Arizona. A very special guest. They sent Connor right from the draft to the Kentucky Derby. So we got our long pod out on Sunday. If you haven't listened to it yet, go listen. It's an hour. There's a lot in there. Also got a fresh other guys on the take crossover episode with Dan and Paul. And now you got me and Will on your Tuesday morning for a very special War Room. Will, the draft is in the books. We got a lot to talk about. We're going to cover the picks. We're also going to cover some what ifs could have happened on the board and some other little tidbits or Parkinson nuggets you've been hearing. How you feeling, pal?
We're alive and well. Look, draft weekend obviously takes a toll on you doing draft weekend while at a bachelor party. Takes in a different time zone. It was a lot, but now we're back, and I think there were some really nice things the Jets did this weekend. I think there were some things that I didn't love, but all in all, I feel like they got at least 3 starters, and that's what we all kind of preached for the last 4 months was like, whatever you do, there needs to be 3 starters that come out of this draft, and I'd be pretty surprised if I think I would take the over at 3.5. I would think it's more like 4. But either way, I was relatively excited with what happened overall this weekend.
I'm very much I liked 4 of the picks, didn't like 3 of the picks camp. I can be swayed over time, but that's my overly simplified take. Now, with you, I want to start right in round 1 because we were talking a little bit that night. 2 different things, and tell me if I'm wrong about this. I think that 1, talk through the scenario the Jets were looking at where they were contemplating potentially trading back from 7 to 10, depending on how the board broke. 2, I'm using my Badlands group chat spidey sense. And while I think you liked the Membu pick, I think you were rooting for Warren. So maybe talk through a little bit as to why and your reaction to the Membu pick overall. So a 2-bagger for you to start.
Yeah, I would say I'll start with the second one first. I didn't think Mason Taylor would make it to 42. I actually just pulled up my notes that my brother sent me, who obviously scouted in the league and was at the Senior Bowl. And I wrote where I thought he said Mason Taylor was going to go, and he wrote top 30, and it was Membu top 15, Mason Taylor top 30, and Az Thomas first round. So
beautiful.
I was like, great. And remember, these are based on what teams are giving, grades are giving the Senior Bowl guys. That's how they build their roster. Between the way they go through the Senior Bowl is like they watch their own tape, they make decisions, and then they based off who the teams are going to draft, right? Like there's like 70 of the 100 guys who are Senior Bowl invites in the top 100 this year. The reason I say all that is I didn't think Mason Taylor would be there. I thought Terrence Ferguson would probably be – he went kind of in the range I thought. Everyone kind of, in mock drafts, you would see these guys at 73 and 110, and that just never felt realistic. So my fear was, hey, can't you get the tackle in round 2? And if you think Warren's just going to be this generational culture-changing guy for you, I liked the idea of what he could bring to the offense and fully expecting never to get that round 2 tight end. So in hindsight, I really love the Membu pick. I didn't love it as much at the time because I was a little nervous. I'm like, hey, we're going to go into round 2. What if Higgins isn't there? What if Besh is gone? All the tight ends are gone. And you're kind of sitting there with your tail between your legs. Like, I know Paul loves Mitchell Evans and I love Jackson Hawes and these guys, but that cannot have been your tight end room, could not have been just Mitchell Evans or just Jackson Hawes and Stone Smart and Jeremy Rucker. Like that just felt unreasonable. So I like the Membu pick. I think it solidifies the offensive line. It's a huge strength of your team now. Like your secondary, to some extent, your defensive line, your linebackers, so most of the defense, and then your offensive line being the strength of your team is a really good thing. In terms of the first question, I would say there were certainly a lot of possibilities that the way the board started to break when Jacksonville traded up, it was like, okay, Genty's going to go 5. The Bears will trade up. The Bears don't trade up. The Browns obviously keep that pick and go Mason Graham. And my spidey senses / things you hear are, hey, if he gets to 7, we could trade back. Chicago's going to want him. And it wasn't like they were going to automatically do it, but it certainly was a conversation of, hey, can we accumulate some more draft capital, get some more guys either in this draft, picks in the following draft, and we could still maybe get one of the tackles. Maybe you could have Memba would have gone, but Banks would have been there. Or, hey, the Saints always loved Banks. We thought, Panthers weren't going tackle. Can we pick up an extra 3 and still get Memba at 10? Like, those are the conversations I think the Jets were having. So, all things considered, I really liked the approach on night one. I thought they read the board well. They probably were comfortable. Membu, Warren, Banks, one of the 3 of those guys will get either at 7 or at 10 or 11, wherever we trade back. If we do that, if not, we stay put. We love the player. We'll take him. Membu's a top 10 player in the class. Banks I would probably have had more in the top 15 range, but you could argue he's a top 10 player too. And obviously I think we all agreed Warren was in that range too. So I guess all in all, my point being, the way they started the process on night one was they addressed the need. They addressed it with a damn good player. And on top of that, I had heard, I'm sure this got reported, but Membu, I think, he had to end up leaving the Senior Bowl early, and it was a bit of, I don't think anyone was like particularly happy about that. Not just the Jets. I think league-wide people were like, what the fuck? Like, where'd this guy go? Measured it and dipped, which happens. Agents get word of these guys going higher than they maybe need to, and they kind of say, we're good. Point being, he had 2 separate calls with the Jets, 45-minute Zooms, and absolutely dominated from everything they said. Like, was unbelievable, blew them out of the water, and it was like, this is our guy. So I'm happy with the Membu pick now, in hindsight, knowing what they were able to do in round 2.
So my hypothesis for night 2, and this could be completely unfounded, is that the Jets were thrilled to get Mason Taylor where they got him. Fine. They checked the box at tight end. I think both you and I like that pick among the most of anyone in the wider Badlands community. I think in round 3, they wanted Kyle Williams. They were planning to take Kyle Williams. Their fallback, they were perfectly fine with their fallback plan because they were shocked to see Thomas there, and they probably thought he was a top 50 player. So as a pick, they had a good plan B in place where they're like, we were probably going to go offense, get the receiver. Fine with Thomas because of the value and because I do think within a season and a half, he's going to be a starter. And I think he'll be a long-term starter here and is a perfect fit for what Glenn does. And I don't think it's out of bounds that Connor said it was his favorite pick at all. What and I'm sure yourself and others didn't like is it seemed like the immediate plan B at receiver was Arian Smith, who we knew they liked. They brought him for a visit. It's not surprising at all that they took him. We planned the guide accordingly. I just think they got jumpy after Williams went and they said, all right, like this is the other speed guy we like. We're just going to take him in 4 and not risk waiting till round 5. That's sort of the only part of the board that I think got a little haywire. Because ultimately, I liked what they did with Malachi Moore. We could talk a little bit about the Miami dudes at the end, but is that roughly played out, how it played out? And why was there not another receiver beyond Williams or Smith that they sort of liked in those middle rounds?
Yeah, so I think, to answer your question, I think they thought, this is, you connecting the dots. I think they thought Tennessee would take Mason Taylor. They didn't. Cleveland didn't take him. Chicago didn't take him, obviously, because they had taken the tight end earlier. It was like, oh shit, he's actually going to be there at 42, and he was. And they're like, all right, cool, knock this one out. So, I really like the pick. I think Mason Taylor, I think Connor described this really well, as he's a jack of all trades, master of none at the moment, but he's got upside at all of those levels. I don't think he's going to be Brock Bowers and catch 115 balls, but I also think he's a better blocker than Brock Bowers is. And I think he does a lot of things Brock Bowers is like not really asked to do because they play a different type of tight end. Like when I played, I was a lot more, not as good as Brock Bowers, obviously, but I couldn't block at all. And like, you're just kind of basically a big receiver, a big slot. Like Mason Taylor blocks well. He does everything well. He's a lot of what we kind of hoped Jeremy Rucker would be, where he could play a lot of different roles and he's a smooth mover in these different things. He's a better player and he's a better athlete, but point being, he actually like should pan out the way it's supposed to pan out. And the lineage thing is a huge thing too, right? Like not only is Jason Taylor his dad, Zach Thomas is his uncle. Like there's just really well spoken, dominated the interview process. I think AZ Thomas, I would be shocked if they thought Azareye'h Thomas was going to be there at 73. There's no way. I just said it before, like he didn't run great, but everything else tested well. It's like he still is he's still a 9, RAS score guy running a high 4.5. Like that means everything else has looked good. Tape's really good, smooth mover, good feet. It's not an immediate need, but it kind of is an immediate need at the same time. I would be if you took pay out of it, Joe. I bet you Azareye'h Thomas is a better player right now than Brandon Stevens is. I have a hard time believing that a guy that cannot is going to sit there with Aaron Glenn. He's going to sit there with Chris Banjo and all these different guys and around Michael Carter and Sauce every day. And he's not going to just I don't know. I'm really high on the pick. I know he's a analytical darling, in terms of he checks all his boxes. So I think they would have taken Kyle Williams for sure. Not for sure. I agree. It would have made sense. And then you could have gone, corner in round 4, or you would have gone Malachi Moore there and figured it out. And Steven stays a corner, and no one would have questioned it. The Arian Smith pick, my issue isn't not that they took Arian Smith. I think everyone shares the same sentiment. I get the dart throw. I don't know, in round 6, when they had those multiple sixes, he's a 4-2 guy that's, a sick athlete, and he's a good kid. And it's I get it. I just felt like at 110, they panicked that somebody else would take him because he's the last. It was him and Kyle Williams were the 2 burners. But I just don't think someone was going to take him that high. And unless we, and something that I don't know, and I guess we won't know for a while until in 10 years, Darren Muji's, drunk on a podcast and with Todd McShay and talking about it. I'm just kidding. Joe Douglas wasn't drunk. It was a joke. You're not going to know if they got intel maybe that somebody else said, oh, we were going to take him if he wasn't there. I also just feel like you could have traded back there and then traded back up for Arian Smith if you were getting wind that someone was going to take him. I just didn't love the way they operated. They operated the board so well the first 3 picks, and the process, contingency plans, everything was I was like, dude, this is. I was like, this is an A draft. I'm not sure they can do anything to mess it up. And I don't think Arian Smith messes it up. He kind of has to actually be useful. He's not just a throwaway special teams guy. He's he's a top 110 pick. You need to be on the roster for that full contract for me to feel like this wasn't a terrible decision. And again, he'll probably be better than we're all talking about now, but how much better, I'm not really sure, to be honest. Last thing I'll say on this, I'm as high on the Senior Bowl guys as anybody. The Senior Bowl is awesome. Please stop showing me the one bent the corner route he ran. Dude, that's the one thing he's good at. He runs 9 balls and he runs 7 routes better than most people. But he's got to be able to do something. Can he be a creative piece in the run game? Are you going to be a kick return? Something's got to have to hit for this pick to be worth it at 110.
Yes, I am assuming, and they said this in the call, they have a very specific role in mind for him. That I'm sure they're going to say, we're going to have a package of plays. He's going to play 8 to 12 snaps a game, and we're going to bomb it to him once a game. He's either going to draw pass interference or open up Garrett Wilson. He's going to be a punt gunner. We'll let him challenge for the kick return job. We'll give him a reverse every other week, and let's see. Hopefully he can stay healthy, and hopefully he's more consistent catching the football. I, like many people, like how they maneuvered the board to get Malachi Moore, just because the safety room, and Dan and Paul did a good job going through the different secondary pieces today and how people could move, and Stevens could maybe play safety. But right now, from a pure safety perspective, you have Cisco and really nobody else. I don't think you could credibly roll out Tony Adams again unchallenged as a starter. And if there's one guy, in round 4 you were going to get who is he's older and he's probably the guy he's going to be, it's Malachi Moore, in a good way and a bad way. I think he can hit the ground running, and he won't be perfect, of course, as a rookie, but I would not be surprised at all if he's starting week 1. And that was just a pick that made a ton of sense in the moment. Now we got to see it in practice, right? There's some questions about the measurables, but I don't stress on that as much in round 4. I think they're going to stay put at safety. I look at all the guys they have in the secondary. I don't know if they think Oliver is a corner or safety. I don't know if they think JBC is a corner or safety. I don't know if with all these guys, who's going to be bouncing between. Are they going to, in certain packages, move our boy Michael Carter around to different roles? I think it's all kind of on the table. I do think for a 4th rounder, there's a nice clean path for Malachi Moore, though. And remember with Adams, it's an undrafted free agent. They did choose to keep him around, but he's not someone this regime handpicked. He's going to have to earn his role every bit as much as Moore has. So before we wrap with the Miami guys, the undrafted class, and other chatter around the team, what are your expectations for how safety plays out?
Yeah, so a couple of things on Malachi Moore. Was going to be a Senior Bowl guy. If you notice a trend here, it's kind of weird. The Jets didn't go to the Jets didn't have Muji or Glenn because they go down to Mobile, but then took essentially their first 5 guys are all Senior Bowl guys. He started over Brian Branch as a freshman because of how high his football IQ is. Like him and Michael Carter on the back end is going to drastically help their communication problems. They know Michael Carter last year, and I know like we're biased because he's that big Badlands guy, but like him not being out there and CJ Mosley, like just their communication was totally screwed as a defense last year amidst Ulbrich and Solid and all this stuff. Like just on the field communication was totally shot. Malachi Moore will help with that consistently. I think this frees you up to do a lot of different things with Cisco and Moore. I think you can move them around. Paul and Dan talked about that a little bit today. Moore had groin surgery. That's why he missed the Senior Bowl. So I don't know where he's at health-wise. It doesn't seem like anything serious. So it'll just be interesting if he gets, is he writing OTAs? Is he going to be worked in slowly? I think based on what I would assume happens now is Isaiah Oliver is Michael Carter's backup. That's what he was last year. I would assume they play him in a similar role. He kind of plays some of the bigger downs. Can Malachi Moore basically beat out Isaiah Oliver, who this regime has no ties to either, and kind of basically get like, hey, I'm going to be the backup slot special teams guy and rotate him package-wise. I actually think I'm more annoyed at the Brandon Stevens signing than I am the Arian Smith pick. If you were going to go this direction, you could have had the cheapest, like Michael Carter and Sauce getting paid. And Cisco's on a very reasonable deal. Michael Carter's deal has already been outdone 3 times since that's what happens, right? It's why you actually pay him early. They could have had Azareye'h Thomas start day one for $1 million a year, Malachi Moore at $600,000 as your other safety with Cisco, and you're like, oh, we could have used that $12 million and had a comp pick back, or we could use that $12 million and overpay Josh Palmer. And yeah, Josh Palmer's not great, but I feel really good about Palmer, Reynolds, and Garrett Wilson as our first 3, with Arian Smith and Corley being gadget guys. Then not do, you know what I mean? Like I think he can transition to safety and be fine. If he's just going to be your outside corner, it's not just a 1-year deal. That's where I keep coming back to what I'm frustrated about. This isn't just like, hey, we'll bench him because he might suck. And maybe he's back to a better league average corner. But this feels like a little bit. This is a bad example, but also I think a good example. Last year with Tyron Smith, they sign him and then they take Olu, and it's like, I would have loved that $20 million back. And
there's other things that need help.
And then you could have just started Olu day one at his natural position, and there've been no problems. I know it's hindsight, it's 2020, but just would have been nice. I think base downs, if I had a gun to my head proverbially right now, if you told me Malachi Moore and Azareye'h Thomas start day one, I wouldn't I wouldn't put him past them. Again, these are guys that are proven big time program players. And Moore's, he's been starting before he's a 2-time team captain. He's been starting since, Tyler Shook was in his 4th year at Texas A&M. So yeah, I like those picks. Moore is definitely my favorite of the day 3 guys. Like he's the one guy where I'm like, this guy will be on the roster the full contract.
For those of you watching on YouTube, you can see the full episode at patreon.com/BadlandsTOJ, along with tons and tons and tons and tons of other content. So patreon.com/BadlandsTOJ. Underdog Fantasy, make sure to sign up now with promo code Badlands. All of the post-NFL draft best ball leagues are rolling. You get a deposit match with our promo code with the link in the bio. That's promo code Badlands for Underdog Fantasy.